Hey, I'm Jahan, and hi. This is my voice you're hearing, and it's sure been a while, huh? 10 months? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Kinda lost my motivation to continue editing after CapCut paywalled everything, but I'm back, so hi. So, why is it that I've decided to make a video where I actually talk instead of making another edit or whatever? Well, with the recent release of the Yakuza 0 Director's Cut on the Switch 2, the RPG community has become a bit irritated regarding a certain trend that's been becoming more and more prominent with each passing game, starting with Yakuza Like a Dragon. RGG's habit of retconning established deaths and bringing dead characters back to life with little to no explanation as to how they survived. There have been several examples of this happening, and with the Director's Cut it's only gotten worse and worse, hence why I'm making this video now. Now, I will admit, there have been some exceptions to this rule where a retcon dev actually provides a good story or character development for said character, so I'll be giving my thoughts on each retcon and seeing if it's plausible for them to survive or not in the first place, and if the character or story benefited from being brought back from the dead or not. And with that out of the way, let's begin. So, our first and also most popular example of this trope is going to be Osamu Kashiwagi, who debuted in Yakuza 1 and appeared in several other games like Yakuza 2, 3, and 0, and died in Yakuza 3 via a minigun firing on him very early in the story. But then, 10 years later, during the events of Yakuza Like a Dragon, Adachi invites him into a bar named Survive in Ijincho, and there we meet Kashiwagi, who's alive and well, and also the owner and bartender of this bar? Now, in my opinion, Mr. Bartender here was never really that much of a significant character in the previous games, and only really shined in Zero, a game that came out after he already died. So I do understand wanting to bring him back since he has gotten more popular following Zero's release. But the guy was Swiss cheesed in Yakuza 3, and Kiryu thought he was dead, Daigo thought he was dead, and Katsuragi just straight up said he was dead. And yet here he is in Yakuza 7 with his only reasoning as to how he's alive being that the doctor said that it was a miracle, and no one, not a single person knew about it. He chose to fake his death and abandon the Tojo clan as well as his oath to Kazuma, and for what? To run a bar in peace and solitude? Now, I get that a near-death experience will give you a new outlook on life, but one of Kashiwagi's biggest points to Kiryu in Yakuza 0 was that you can't just leave the Yakuza like that without any consequences whatsoever. He was one of the most by-the-book Yakuza in the franchise and firmly respected the rules of that world. I just thought it was weird how he just abandoned the clan like that despite knowing they were in a crisis and all the respect he had for Kazuma and Kiryu. As for how well they handled his character post his resurrection, well, Kashiwagi never really had much of a major role prior to his death in Yakuza 3. He was more so just a background character who provided occasional assistance when needed, but didn't really help that much when it really mattered. His biggest contribution before Yakuza 0 was providing backup to Kiryu when he was about to fight Shimano for the second time, but even then, those guys were weak as hell and died almost immediately, so not much help there. But then, after Yakuza 0 made him one of the most badass characters in the game with the quickest QT in the franchise, they fleshed his character out a bit more in 7 and 8, and made him more of an interesting character in my opinion. And aside from being an ally to Ichiban, giving a roof over his head and advice on how to handle his friends and relationships, it also shows that he's now a skilled cook and gardener, which is nice, and he also quite honestly gives my favorite sub-story for Kiryu in Yakuza 8. I found their brief interaction in Infinite Wealth to be really touching and heartfelt. Both of these men knew exactly who the other were, but knew that they couldn't just outright state the other's identity, and so spoke as if they were strangers. But the mutual respect they had for each other was still there and palpable. Him telling Kiryu to rely on people more and to come back to the bar once he reclaims his name so that they could truly speak to each other with no secrets to hide and all cards on the table felt really impactful to me. It was like his final lesson to Kiryu, who was like a younger brother to him for all those years they were under Kazuma together, and I really liked that scene despite how brief it was. Now, let's just hope we actually get to see that someday, because, well, yeah. Overall, I'd say him surviving the minigun is damn near impossible since several characters fought or said he was already dead. But him being brought back was honestly the best thing that could have happened to his character and really expanded on what was already there for Kashiwagi. And it let us see one last interaction between Kiryu and someone from his past. Pretty good decision they made here, all things considered. I don't mind his resurrection at this point, even if it doesn't make sense. Maybe the bullets just conveniently missed all of his vital organs? I don't know. Now, our second example here will be Lau Ka Long, who first appeared in Yakuza 1 where he kidnaps Haruka, like a prick, and returns in Yakuza 3 where he kidnaps Rikia and almost decapitates him, before being shot in the head and killed by Choji. I mean, like, we just straight up see the dude with a bullet hole in his head. There is no goddamn way like, he's fucking dead. I'd say he deserved the bullet because he was, to start, the leader of a Chinese triad who kidnapped a child, tried to kill you twice, kidnapped your friend and almost cut his head off, tried to get revenge on you by forging alliance with Hamazaki, and invaded the city with his men. So, just a massive scumbag overall, yeah. His death basically spelled the end of the Japanese branch of the Snake Flower Triad, since they fell apart after he died and were basically completely abandoned by their members in the mainland before being completely snuffed out by the Sayo Triad in Yakuza 6 in 2016. But then, 10 years later, during Yakuza Like a Dragon, Ichiban finds out about an underground arms dealer by the name of Lau Ka Long, an obvious fake name for Lau since he has the exact same scar on his face. He also makes it very clear that he still remembers Kiryu and Kazuma when Kazuga brings up the Tojo clan, implying he still bears a grudge against the two of them. A couple of years later, during Infinite Wealth, Sonhee introduces Kiryu to Chao, and the two immediately recognize each other for obvious reasons. The two get into a fight, saying how Lau will allow Kiryu to become a customer if he manages to defeat him, which he does, for the third time. And then, once he's beaten, he almost reveals his identity to Kiryu and his party before Kiryu interrupts him, saying how they both have their secrets and the only things they need to know about each other are their fake names. Kiryu settles his differences with Lau and then becomes a regular customer for him, with both forgiving each other for all prior actions. And my thoughts on all this? What the hell? Okay, I'm just gonna make this clear. I just don't like this for several reasons. My biggest one, we saw the bullet hit his fucking head and it instantly killed him. Unlike Kashiwagi's incident where you could at least pretend it didn't hit anything important, we saw Joji hit the head, and we have no reason to assume that he uses rubber bullets or whatever, since he's a CIA agent who shoots to kill, like when he was about to assassinate Tomo, or when he shot and killed Lau's two men who were holding Rikia hostage. And secondly, why would Lau just abandon his own mafia organization to rot if he was alive the entire time? We know he kept his grudge against Kiryu and the Tojo clan following Yakuza 3, and the Snake Flower Tribe remained active until 2016, and yet the guy just remained hidden as an arms dealer in Ijincho for some reason? Bear in mind that the Snake Flower's main headquarters are in Yokohama anyways, and yet he just never once bothered to make his survival known to get revenge on Kiryu? What? Bear in mind that because Kiryu trashed his entire organization, they were left to basically fend for themselves by the organization in the mainland, and their leader just forgives the guy who did it and never once bothered to come back and help his men. I mean, what the hell? Like, sure, I can understand Kiryu giving second chances to some of his opponents like how he did with Arase, but I genuinely don't understand how Lau just lets it go after another rematch. Shouldn't he, like, be more pissed at this point since his entire mafia is gone out because of Kiryu and he just lost another fight against him? Overall, this makes no sense. I mean, Lau surviving the bullet has zero logical reasoning how he just brushed off a bullet to the brain, and his character just feels completely different to how he was beforehand. The only possible reasoning as to how he survived would be a goddamn titanium skull transplant, but you know that's a fucking stretch! In case you couldn't tell, I don't like this. The guy should have just stayed dead in my opinion, and for good goddamn reason. Alright, so I know this hasn't been publicly confirmed on any official media, but come on. Hanawa is obviously Morinaga. While the credibility of this tweet could be questionable, I personally do believe it to be true, and think that the evidence is there to support it. Yu Morinaga first appeared in Yakuza 5, serving as a major character and ally to Kiryu, and the oath brother to Masato Aizawa. The two helped Kiryu in raiding the Yamagata family headquarters and investigating Daigo's disappearance, before Morinaga gets shot by Aoyama and remains absent until the end of Kiryu's part, where he returns to kill Aoyama and reveals that he also killed Aizawa off-screen, and that he also has much bigger things planned, and telling Kiryu to head to Kamurocho, which implies he'll have a major role for the finale of this game. But then at the end of Yakuza 5, Aizawa is revealed to be alive the entire time and that Morinaga lied about killing him. When Saitama and Aizawa ask the florist about the whereabouts of Morinaga, the florist says that he was found dead by the police. So I guess he was just killed off screen. Afterwards, Kiryu asks Aizawa if he was the one who killed Morinaga or not, which Aizawa doesn't even answer and changes the topic to something else. So we can only assume that Kurosawa had his men kill Morinaga off screen. And then 7 years later, during the events of Like a Dragon Gaiden, you meet Kihei Hanawa, a mysterious man who happens to be Kiryu's handler at the Daidoji faction. His identity isn't really gone into that much throughout all of Gaiden, but he does become genuine friends with Kiryu by the end of it, willing to risk his own life and role at the Daidoji faction because he didn't want to kill Kiryu. Now you might be thinking, what do these two have to do with each other? Well, at the end of the game, Hanawa revealed something extremely crucial to connecting these two random characters together. He knows that Kiryu went under the alias of Taichi Suzuki once, and that they met once while he was under that alias and before Hanawa became a Daidoji member. He also reveals that he, much like Kiryu, found a new life and abandoned his previous identity. Now, this could either mean that Hanawa was either just some random guy who just happened to take Kiryu's cab once during Yakuza 5, or he's actually Morinaga who faked his death and became a member of the Daidoji afterwards, which I find to be more likely since the evidence is there and the fact that they share the same voice actor, Hiroki Tochi. With all the evidence we currently have on Hanawa, I'd say it's safe to assume that he is Morinaga and never actually died in Yakuza 5. Now, my personal thoughts on this? I'd honestly say this makes perfect sense, and I like how it connects Yakuza 5 and Gaiden in such a weird but fitting way. I always found it weird how Morinaga just died off screen during 5, despite being a major character in Kiryu's part, and him faking his death to become a member of the Daidoji is a nice little retcon that I appreciate. We won't have to discuss how likely it was for him to survive, since we never even saw him die in the first place or know exactly who it was who killed him. Police reports say he died, but the same thing happened to Kiryu when he faked his death and joined the Daidoji in Yakuza 6. So it'd be safe to assume that they probably just had some officer say he was dead, and be a witness to that, and then just change his name and face afterwards, like how in Yakuza 6 Date was a quote-unquote witness to Kiryu's death. I really like what they did with Hanawa's character as well as his relationship with Kiryu and Gaiden. It's a slow evolution from a cold, business-only relationship between the two, and then to a genuine bond of friendship and trust between the two by the end of it. And Kiryu especially needed it too, since Hanawa was basically his only friend he had for 8 years when he was a member of the Daidoji. And besides, I mean, Morinaga already respected Kiryu, so I think it's a natural progression. Now, my biggest problem with this? Infinite Wealth's total fucking butchering of Hanawa and how fucking useless and incompetent both he and the Daidoji are during the events of this game. He just dies to a single bullet from some random dude, and that's just how he dies, without any outright confirmation that he is Morinaga in-game. I mean, Gaiden set Hanawa as one of the most likable side characters in the franchise, and he just dies so unceremoniously during Infinite Wealth. It just feels wrong. Not to mention, Kiryu just kinda completely disregards his death and moves on without much care, despite being friends with Hanawa for like 8 years at this point. Now, I know that Infinite Wealth was made before Gaiden made Hanawa such a likable character, but like, wouldn't have been possible to rewrite Infinite Wealth just a little bit so that Hanawa got more of a well-written depth, and Kiryu actually shows care to his friend dying, like when Rikia, Tachibana, or Shinji died, instead of basically just saying, shit happens, I guess. But other than Infinite Wealth's piss-poor portrayal of him, I'd say resurrecting Morinaga as Hanawa was one of the best choices in the franchise, and I really like this decision since it just improves on Morinaga's character, and honestly, pretty good all things considered. Just ignore Infinite Wealth's fucking piss-poor, it just shit pisses me off. Our last example before we dive into the director's cut of Zero will be Andre Richardson, who debuted in Yakuza 3 and served as one of the major antagonists of the game, being responsible for the hospitalization of Daigo, the death of Kashiwagi, and the death of Mine. He was also the leader of a terrorist arms-dealing organization by the name of Black Monday. Black Monday. And he also had several boss fights, and also one of the best themes in the entire game. Holy shit! Holy shit. After you beat him for the third time and defeat Mine in the final battle of the game, he suddenly reappears at the end, gun in hand and ready to kill Kiryu and Mine before Daigo wakes up from his coma and shoots Richardson and his men and saves the day?
What the fuck?
Well, that's until Richardson gets back up and starts fucking yelling that he won't let it end like this, and how he'll kill you all! But that's when Mine, with his change of heart and new perspective on life after Kiryu beat him, decides to grab Richardson, stand near the edge of the rooftop, and say his parting words to Kiryu and Daigo before jumping off the roof of the hospital, killing both himself and Richardson to sever the connection between the Tojo clan and Black Monday. Mine's final act in his tragic life was sacrificing both himself and his second chance at life just to save Kiryu and Daigo, the only people who ever saw him for more than just money, and killing Andre Richardson as well, the leader of an international terrorist organization who was responsible for most of the events of the game. So, just to be clear, Mr. Richardson was the leader of a terrorist organization which dealt in international arms dealing, not to mention this guy almost killed several of our friends, and was the reason why Mine died in the first place, despite the fact he was just about to turn over a new leaf, and tried to kill Kiryu like 3 separate times. So, this dude was just a massive piece of shit, right? No questions about it? Sure, a funny piece of shit.
If you're looking for Daigo, Mine's taken him up to the roof.
But still a piece of shit, nonetheless. Well, imagine my fucking shock when I see this motherfucker 13 years later, alive and well, serving as the bartender again at the Revolve Bar in Hawaii. And Kiryu's just completely fine with him. Like, Kiryu's just a fucking regular at the bar and doesn't mind talking to the guy as if he's a good fucking friend. And Richardson clearly doesn't mind the fact that the guy who toppled his fucking global organization is just having a drink at his bar like a regular fucking customer. Kiryu, my guy, this asshole is the reason why Mine is dead, even though he was right on the verge of turning over a new leaf and starting his second chance at life. This bastard came in and was the reason why Mine had to kill himself so that he could save you and Daigo, and you just forgive him? I mean, sure, we never see their reunion on screen, and Q's forgiven several other villains like Arasi and Lau, but this is getting fucking absurd. I mean, hell, if you ask me, this guy's fucking worse than Lau Ka Long, because at least Lau didn't actually kill anyone we knew, but Mine's dead because of Richardson, and Kiryu just forgot, I guess? And let's also get into the fact that he's somehow alive, despite the fact that both he and Mine fell off the top of a skyscraper, which, according to Reddit, is 400 fucking meters tall. This guy didn't have a parachute on him anywhere, there wasn't anything to cushion the fall, and Mine is confirmed to be dead. And Richardson was also assumed to be dead for the last fucking 13 years, until Infinite Wealth came out and revealed that he's fucking fine and dandy somehow. He never provides any reasoning or explanation as to how he's alive. There wouldn't be any like field medics around to provide him any support since all of Black Monday was just taken out by Kiryu and Daigo, and I doubt there'd be any actual doctors nearby to help a terrorist leader back to full strength. Not to mention he just go fucking splat from the impact of falling 400 meters to the fucking ground! As for his character post-resurrection, he's barely even the same guy. Okay, so he just speaks Japanese now, despite the fact that his most memorable trait was the fact that he only spoke English to a Japanese cast like it was fucking Tekken.
If I'd known it would have come to this, I'd have killed you when first we met.
Nandato.
And now he's just never acts like the insane cartoon villain he was before. and now he's just a mysterious random guy who introduces to Julie and just knows random stuff about the underworld in Hawaii, I guess. So just zero mention of Black Monday whatsoever. Cool. Overall, I really don't like this. I mean, sure, it's funny to see a funny rough guy again after 13 years, but this is just a complete insult to Mina's story and sacrifice at the end of Yakuza 3. What the hell did Mina die for if Richardson's just alive and well and still doing shady activity? I mean, sure, he's not leading a terrorist organization anymore, but he's hardly a saint just because he's had a near-death experience. Also, he literally watches Ichiban get sexually assaulted by Julie. What? Why the fuck is he still alive, RG? Why the fuck is he still alive? On the 5th of June, 2025, RG released a director's cut of Yakuza 0 on the Switch 2, promising 20 minutes of new cutscenes to the story, as well as some other features like the multiplayer mode and the restoration of copyrighted Japanese tracks, among other tiny things. All for the price of $50. Despite the fact that all previous versions of the game only cost $20. Now, I will admit, some of these new cutscenes are pretty good and nice additions to the story, like the ones of Kuze and Nishiki, but I am not lying when every single other cutscene does nothing but just make the story worse and retcon to death that did not need to be retconned at all. These changes to the story are the main reason why the community is so pissed about the director's cut in the first place. And you know what? I completely understand. I mean, hell, these cutscenes are what gave me the motivation to work on this video in the first place because they pissed me off too. And with that explanation out of the way, let's get into this dumpster fire of storytelling, just dive right into this sack of shit. In the first cutscene of Yakuza 0, Kiryu is seen collecting a debt in the empty lot for the president of a money lending company named Toko Credit. Kiryu hands the money he has collected to this unnamed president, whom I shall now refer to as Mr. Toko for simplicity's sake, and then when offered a job by him, Kiryu declines the offer and basically tells him to piss off. Later on in the game, Kiryu, after he's been framed for the murder of the guy he beat up in the empty lot, heads to Mr. Toko to try and get answers out of him on who set him up and if he knows anything regarding the murder of the debtor. But before Kiryu can get anything out of him, Kuze comes in and tells Mr. Toko to leave before he can reveal anything. And then in the next chapter, Mr. Toko's corpse is found dead by the police and has presumably been killed by Kuze's men off screen so that he wouldn't reveal anything. So, nothing really important there, right? I mean, this random dude, who doesn't even have a name, just dies off screen and we moved on and forgot about him because he's just that unimportant and forgettable, right? Well, in the director's cut of 0, they added a new cutscene for when Kiryu arrives in Sotenbori and meets Mr. Toko right there in the streets of Sotenbori. What is he doing here? How is he alive? Why is he alive? Well, apparently, he actually faked his death from Kamurocho and that the body found by the police was a fake because he was actually under the payroll of Shibusawa the entire time, who set up the decoy for him. So, Shibusawa kept him alive and faked his death so that he could hold leverage over Kuze, because of the fact that Mr. Toko was basically a living liability to Kuze. He also specifically chose Sotenbori because it was Omi Alliance territory and that Kuze wouldn't be able to search for him there without leading to like a major incident between Vitojo and Omi. After Mr. Toko explains that, he goes on to say that he's been training an apprentice to start a new business back in Kamurocho under the name of Peace Finance. And that his apprentice will be the face of this company that lends out money in the name of peace while he sits in the back and makes all the cash from behind the scenes. And then after that, he just pisses off and just tells Kiryu to come by sometime if he ever needs a loan and just disappears. Never to be seen or heard from again. Peace Finance. You remember Peace Finance? No you don't. I mean, I barely do. No one does. They were the money lending company that Kiryu beats up at the start of Yakuza 1 due to them not paying their debts, and that's it. That's literally all the plot significance they have across the entire saga. They're literally the first enemy you fight in the entire franchise, and that's literally all the importance they have. They do nothing else for every other game, and that's it. That apprentice he tells you about? Well, that's Harada, the head of Peace Finance. Remember him? No the fuck you don't. I don't either. Who the fuck does? Okay, so he has one 3-minute appearance in Yakuza 1 where he fights you like twice, and then a sub-story in Yakuza 3 where he makes peace with his son and then Kiryu. And that's all. Nothing else. Was it necessary to foreshadow him of all people, RGG? Seriously? So let me get this shit straight. The director's cut provided an extra cutscene to retcon yet another death for a forgettable character that no one gives two flying shits about, so that they could give you the backstory of another forgettable character from Yakuza 1 that no one cares about either, and just serves zero purpose to the story at all because they just fucking felt like it. What the fuck is this for, RGG? And Mr. Toko is just never brought up or heard from again in Yakuza 1, and Kiryu just never mentions him while he's at Peace Finance. So why the hell did you even connect these two random characters if they had nothing to do with each other to begin with? In terms of plausibility for him surviving, I guess it's plausible for him to survive since we never saw who killed him or how he died. But that wasn't the problem. It was never about how he's alive. It's why he's alive. What purpose does it serve? Does anyone even fucking remember him? What did it even accomplish? Who is this for? Overall, who the hell cares? Detective Billiken was a minor character in Yakuza 0's story, serving as the guy who introduces Majima to the underground coliseum in Sotabori, as well as Nishitani's secret hideout in prison. He was also Nishitani's foster father and mole inside the Osakan PD, who gives you some light exposition regarding Nishitani's childhood and past. After your second fight of Nishitani, you immediately encounter Billiken again afterwards. However, it's shown he's just been shot in the back by the officer he had bribed earlier. His final words are to tell Nishitani to run, as he then falls to the floor and seemingly dies from his wounds. It's also in this scene where Nishitani is shot to death as well, and Majima runs to save Makoto, marking the end of Nishitani and his foster father. And then, in the Yakuza 0 director's cut, it's revealed that Billiken survived the bullet wound and that he's currently recovering at a hospital, no longer a cop due to the scene he caused at the jailhouse. So, what's he doing? Why is he alive? Well, he's here to provide exposition, of course, because that's all he's good for, honestly. He confirms that Nishitani is 100% dead, but that the Kichi clan lives on with a new leader at the helm, Nishitani II. Yep, Nishitani II. They added a new cutscene just so that they could reference and foreshadow Nishitani III from Gaiden, and that's it. Billiken never comes up again, and he never does anything for the rest of the game. That's all. I mean, sure, I guess? Like, I did find it, like, a little weird how he just didn't know anything about the second Nishitani and Gaiden and just jumped straight to the third one, so I appreciate him trying to explain the Nishitani lineage and how it works and all, but, like, this was pretty fucking unnecessary in the grand scheme of things, you know? What we already knew in Gaiden was more than enough, and we could just fill the gaps with the info we already had. It was safe to assume that it probably was a second Nishitani and that he died off-screen before the events of Gaiden. Especially considering there's a 30-year time gap between Zero and Gaiden, so I really don't think we need an extra cutscene to retcon yet another death for a minor character that barely anyone remembers. But it was nice talking about the original Nishitani again and reminiscing about him since I really liked his character and I appreciate him actually getting emotional over his death since he was basically like a son to him and eventually death of his daughter. So that wasn't the worst, I guess. But this was still completely unnecessary, honestly. As for how plausible it is for him to survive, I mean, one bullet to the back seems survivable, I think. He's in a wheelchair the next time we see him, so the bullet still clearly did something, but like, I'd say it's survivable, especially in the world of Yakuza. Overall, not the worst, but still wasn't necessary, wanted, or important. I prefer if they just kept him dead, since I doubt anybody cared if he lived or not, but could have been way worse. At least they didn't fucking retcon Nishitani stuff or something, and I thought it was neat to have Gaiden be referenced a bit here. So, yeah, it's okay, I guess. Oh boy. Time for the worst one out of a bunch. Wen Hai Lee was a major supporting character in Majima's story in Yakuza 0, serving as Makoto's guardian and caretaker before the events of the story, and having several boss fights as well. He was a former assassin who rescued Makoto after freeing her and several other women, who were being held captive by a Korean mafia. No, not the one you're thinking of, and became a sort of father figure for her as he looked for the man who kidnapped her in the first place, the man with the bat tattoo, Jun Oda. Later on in the game, after you fought off Saga was the man and protected Makoto alongside Lee, Lee gets a truck ready for him to use and escape from Sotabori with. And then it fucking explodes with Lee in the center of it because of a car bomb that Saga's men set up. Holy shit. This is such a sudden death with absolutely zero build-up or ceremony. And I love it. It's an extreme showing of how you can just die at any moment and that there is no mercy in the world of the Yakuza and that they will just kill you in the most abrupt and brutal way possible. Lee died without knowing if Makoto was going to be safe or not, if Majima was able to protect her, and without a single goddamn clue on who the man with the bat tattoo was. It's blunt and brutal and it's perfect because of how unsympathetic it is. And then the director's cut came out. Turns out, Lee somehow survived the explosion despite being at the epicenter of it. What the fuck? So, Lee somehow survives the explosion and makes it to a hospital despite several Yakuza being out on the streets and looking for him. He then gets one of his Chinese friends to find Majima outside of the Kitchen Clan headquarters and tell him that Makoto's his responsibility now, as Lee watches from a distance on a wheelchair and covered in bandages. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. No shit, Makoto's our responsibility now. That was a goddamn given. And how the hell did his friends find Majima so quickly? This scene supposedly happens one chapter after Lee gets blown up, and the time gap between the two chapters is minimal. So how did Lee wake up almost immediately from his wounds, find the strength to get on a wheelchair, and have his friends find Majima, while also being present to secretly watch for conversation? I genuinely do not understand what RGG thought they were cooking here, but this definitely wasn't it. This cutscene's already bad enough of Majima bringing up Makoto's watch, despite the fact it's supposed to be like a small detail that everyone else forgot, while Majima remembered, making it more heartfelt, and yet, here he's reminding everyone of the watch and making you expect that he's gonna fix it, taking away all of the surprise in the ending. Sure, they say he could still die from his wounds considering his current condition and that it's questionable if he's even gonna live to see tomorrow or not. But like, why even bring him back in the first place then? To tell us stuff we already know while removing all the stakes from the story? Probability of survival? Hell no! We saw him at the epicenter of a massive explosion that knocked out Majima and Makoto despite being further away. He was at the very center of the explosion and we saw that the truck was a burning mess because of that explosion. There is absolutely zero way he could have survived that shit. He doesn't even do anything post-resurrection either. He just gets his Chinese friend to tell us the obvious and that his survival should remain a secret to Makoto so that she wouldn't worry. He also says that Lee will be watching over Majima, and like, okay, sure. You're never brought up again, and I doubt you're gonna drive all the way to Kamurocho just to stalk me, dude. You really do not matter anymore. In case my tone hasn't given it away yet, I hate this. Not only does this ruin Majima's speech to Aono at the end about how these deceased characters like Nishitani influence his life, it also completely negates the meaning of death in this franchise and basically opens the door for a resurrection for literally anyone, even if they had the most unsurvivable deaths possible. Kazuma, Nishiki, Mine, Riki, and Tachibana? Well, their deaths are questionable now, I guess, if you can survive being blown up by a fucking car. Don't be surprised when you boot up Yakuza 10 and see fucking Arakawa running a bar in Texas or whatever. Overall, this is the worst one out of the bunch and by a massive margin. There is genuinely zero good defense here, and this retcon accomplishes nothing in the long run, since Lee never even does anything again and probably dies off screen too from his wounds. So, him being temporarily brought back really did nothing but harm the story. So, yeah, this shit sucks. Well, that's that. Apologies for my previous rant, but I just really had to get that off my chest. The Yakuza franchise is my favorite game franchise of all time, and I will support it for as long as I can, but with the way we're handling these retcons of previously established deaths, I feel like these will do nothing but harm the games in the long run and just remove all stakes from the story. Why should we care if a character dies if the door for them to come back is always open? Now, my only hope is that RGG stops with these retcons and treats deaths as definitive endings for characters. While there were some characters that benefited from these retcons like Morinaga and Kashiwagi, those were certainly the exceptions and not the rule. Lee, Lau Ka Long, and Richardson were certainly the worst examples of this and just show how detrimental they can be to previously established plot points. What's worse is that they recognize that this is already turning into a trend and teased us about the return of Ryuji of all characters and guidance sub-stories. They knew we were getting annoyed with these retcons and they just made a joke out of it. So, let me just say this one more time. RGG, please stop before this gets even worse. And that's all, folks. Thanks for your time and watching this video, and again, I'm sorry for my long absence on this channel. It's just that life got in the way and I kinda lost all interest in editing, but I'm back and hopefully here to stay. I'm planning to do more of these video essays in the future, so if this video does well, you can certainly expect more of these out of me since this was pretty fun to make. If you liked the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I read all the comments, and I'd really appreciate some feedback since this is my first time doing this sort of thing, and well, video requests or ideas are always welcome, so be sure to post them if you have any. This is Jahan Pinkman, signing off.